Hey YouTube, here to talk about things going on in the world around us. I know it's been a while since I've had one of these videos. I've honestly worked on a few of these, but I just can't get a video out. There's so much happening at once where I'll start talking about one subject and another thing happening related to that subject will change or happen, or something else will happen. Donald Trump's going to do something else, or Hillary Clinton something else. Something else leaked through WikiLeaks about the DNC, or there's something global that happens that keeps changing or something. So I figured I might as well do a video that is related to all of this, and I think it's causing a lot of these issues. And I think there'll be a root of a lot of issues we're seeing. And I'll just title the video, The Dangers of Progressivism. Now, to preface this, not all of progressivism is dangerous, but a lot of it can be because of what people think the definition or the job of progressives or progressivism is or are. To preface my whole spiel, I'll give you the definition of progressivism. The definition of progressivism is it's a philosophy based on the idea of progress, which asserts that the advancement of science, technology, economic development, and social development are vital to improve the human condition. Note, nowhere in the definition included it's government's job to do all of these things. And to further preface my spiel, progressivism has somehow become synonymous with liberalism. And to touch on that, liberalism up until only about 100 years ago was much more like libertarianism. In fact, Thomas Jefferson, who is one of our founding fathers and maybe one of the most influential people in human history, was considered a liberal. And now, because of this synonym that is progressive and liberal, we have the wrong idea of both liberal and progressive. So my first point is liberal. I'll talk about liberal before I talk about progressive. Somehow liberals think like progressives now, where a liberal will think it's the government's job to do everything. A lot of liberal activists will fight for bigger government because they think the government can cure everything, or they think it's the government's job to stop something, or they think this thing is wrong, therefore the government is the only solution. And a common argument you will see among liberals is, oh, you oppose this point of view that is liberal, or you think the government shouldn't do this thing for these people, therefore you must be against this problem being solved. Perfect example for you. Barack Obama came out and made it a national executive order that all government buildings, including schools, had to have a gender-neutral bathroom for all those who identify as transgendered or gender-neutral. And this, of course, is a bit unreasonable and, in my opinion, outside of the realm of the government's job. However, myself, including that, anyone who has that point of view will be labeled by people who think they're liberal as, oh, you must hate gay people, or oh, you're just a bigot, or you're just anti-trans. You don't care about people who are minorities. You don't care about the issue. No, I just don't think it's reasonable to have, because honestly, people who are trans have been using one of the two restrooms their whole lives. And an argument might be, well, it's not that hard to make a third bathroom. It's not that hard to make a third bathroom, really. You're going to redesign all these government buildings for a huge minority of this country, less than 0.5% of this country, maybe even less than 0.25% of this country. That being said, I understand that there are ways the government can help. This isn't one of them. Here's another example of how progressive government, which means the idea that the government has to solve all the problems, it can cause problems. One very progressive city in the United States, New York City, is now making it legal, or making it a law as to where you can't use incorrect gender pronouns with people who identify as trans or are gender neutral. This has caused more problems than it has solved. Now, in the state of New York, what you're seeing is there are employers who are now even more so avoiding hiring people who are trans. I know this because I've spoken with trans people. The employment rate for people who are transgendered is already low. Now you're going to make this law that is going to fine people for identifying them incorrectly. And these are human beings who, within less than 50 years ago, may have been in the trenches of Normandy. Like, we have enough of a thick skin to deal with being called the incorrect gender pronoun. So let me get into progressivism and how they've been using this idea of, oh, you're not liberal, you must be a conservative bigot, to their advantage. This has divided us more than ever. In fact, in many ways, it has not been progressive for us. Now, if you don't agree with a progressive, you must not be of a liberal mindset, and it doesn't make sense. I'm a libertarian. I consider myself to have the original sense of liberal, so I feel I am more liberal than people like Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. I think the idea that government has to solve all the problems is very dangerous, because what do you then have? You have debt and you have inefficiency. And someone who is extremely progressive may be somewhat of a socialist, where they think that individual success should not be encouraged. The sharing of the wealth should be encouraged. But we've seen time and time again throughout history that that isn't a successful business model. You're seeing it right now in Venezuela, which literally mandated everyone to share the majority of their wealth with the government. And what did they do with that money? Just like what most countries have done with the sharing of the pot. They've decided to abuse the money. You saw it with Russia. Right now, because of the Soviet Union, Russia has more nuclear weapons than every other country combined, including the United States. And they're not even going to use them. I hope not, at least. That's what they did with all the money they got from their own people in the Soviet Union. And we saw the Soviet Union worked out. You had bread lines around the block. What's going to stop countries from doing that in the future? And I understand that there are socialist countries who are very responsible with money, but it's still very dangerous for individuals to be convinced or to be labeled as racist if they're against giving more money to support more issues. Here's just a relevant example by 2016 and how money should be spent. Hillary Clinton her spending proposals, all of them combined, add up to around $3,437,530,000,000. That is more money than the Iraq War, the New Deal, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac bailout, the Wall Street bailout, the SNL bailouts, the entire Apollo moon landing program, the Eisenhower highway system, the International Space Station, the Marshall Plan, the 9/11, September 11th World Trade Center cleanup, the Manhattan Project, which built the very first atomic bomb, and the Northeast Highway development. That is more money than all of those combined. And while I'm talking about it, I have a graphic over it. You can read it. That's dangerous. We're already $21 trillion in debt. And I agree with Rand Paul when he said that one of the greatest dangers to our security is our economic health. I almost went porky pig there on you. Is our economic health. And what we have now is a government who has coerced the definition of liberal into being synonymous with progressive. So if you are against the government expanding, you must be a racist. And that's very dangerous in many ways, not just for our own debt, but for having dissenting opinion. We already have what happened in New York and outside the country in states like, or in provinces like Quebec and cities like Toronto, or in countries like England with cities like London, where you can't say these words, otherwise you'll be fined. In Canada, you have multiple comedians who have been arrested for telling jokes that were too offensive. That is so completely against freedom, it's absolutely ridiculous. The extreme of that is like what happened under Stalin, under Mao, during the Khmer Rouge, where if you had a dissenting opinion, you were either executed or put into a labor camp. What is dangerous about this idea that it should be the government's job to take care of everyone is what happens if you disagree with government. Does that mean you disagree with, or does that mean you hate these people the government is taking care of? That is how Hitler rose to power and how Hitler easily dispatched the Jews, because he convinced his people that he'll take care of everyone. And he's going to start by moving these Jews. Most of the Germans who lived in Germany during the mid to late 1930s and in the 1940s had no idea the Jews were being put in concentration camps. They just thought they were being moved away into other countries and being whisked away. This is what's so dangerous about both of our current candidates. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have talked about the expansion of government and really don't mind about spending a lot of money to get us there. That's why I've always been leaning towards candidates who actually are fiscally responsible. And it's really sad, in the primary season we saw a lot of responsible candidates on both sides of the spectrum be whisked away by candidates like Hillary Clinton, who colluded with the DNC, and candidates like Donald Trump, who have more money than all the other Republican candidates combined. Maybe Carly Fiorina not included. She's almost a billionaire. But now more than ever, you're seeing in politics this idea that the government needs to grow and don't mind this huge debt that is bigger than it's ever been. Bigger than it's been throughout all of history of the United States combined. It's just absolutely insane. So I get to a point now where we ask ourselves, what is the solution? What are we going to do to stop this dangerous seed that is growing in our philosophy, our mindset as a society of the United States? And my first piece of advice is to remain completely objective. Stop getting your news from Fox. Stop getting your news from MSNBC. Stop getting your news from CNN. Understand that news is paid for by the establishment. When I say establishment, I'm saying Hillary Clinton, I'm saying Barack Obama, I'm saying Donald Trump, I'm saying people with influence and power and money. And I'm even saying careful what independent news sources you're getting your news from. The Young Turks have been completely coerced by the establishment. And there are other news outlets who have also had the same happen to them. Al Jazeera is on a path in the wrong direction. Second, I would say understand where the root of these issues are coming from. I am a libertarian, so I'm a Ron Paul fan. I'd say read some literature suggested by Ron Paul. I'd say read Ludwig von Mises, who talks about the Austrian economic theories. I'd say read Ron Paul. I'd say develop an understanding of why governments do these things. Ultimately, I'd say government as a whole really operates based off of growing itself. Government will latch onto issues and say, like the trans issue, for example, say, oh, you disagree with me on this, you must be a bigot, you must be a sexist. Currently what they're doing, like with Black Lives Matter, the current administration is saying, oh, you disagree with what this activist from Black Lives Matter is saying? You disagree with them wanting free education for all African Americans only? Oh, you must hate black people. And they'll use those issues to grow government, because if government isn't growing, it's not increasing the money it's making. And that's, of course, very dangerous. Government can only grow so far, though, as you know. And ultimately, I would say hashtag this. And the Fed. The Federal Reserve is responsible for the diminishment of our currency value. What you're hearing over and over again is raise minimum wage by people who need a basic living wage. And that is true. Everyone needs a basic living wage. But why is it that 25 years ago, what you saw was a minimum wage is like $2 an hour, or even less? And there were people who right out of high school were able to buy homes, and people in high school were able to buy Mustangs and everything, because the value of our currency is completely diminished. It's continuing to diminish. We're becoming closer and closer to the value of the peso, not because the peso is becoming so much more powerful. It's because we're flooding the economic market with fiat currency, meaning currency that is just paper. It's not backed by anything, because the Federal Reserve is just printing and printing and printing, because the government has it completely unchecked. It's not a government. The Federal Reserve isn't a government branch. And it has no problems with it, because the government is achieving its goal by continuing to grow. And if you disagree with it, oh, you must be one of them racist conservatives. And I'm not even conservative. It's amazing what progressives and liberals tell people nowadays. Oh, you're a libertarian? Oh, no, you're just a closeted Republican. No, you know, a libertarian's its own party. Fourth and final piece of advice. If you don't like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, you have two other options who have a lot of percentage of vote. You have Jill Stein from the Green Party. And I personally, from my point of view, don't support Jill Stein because she is a supporter of growing government to solve more issues. She's absolutely progressive and absolutely feels it's the government's job to solve certain issues. And then there's another candidate, Gary Johnson, who's in the Libertarian Party. If you don't like Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Jill Stein, I would just suggest check out Gary Johnson. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's a whole lot better, in my opinion, than Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Jill Stein, because they're all progressives, and they all want government to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And Gary Johnson is the only candidate this election season, other than Rand Paul, who has stated he's going to shrink government to pull us more out of debt, because at some point we're going to hit a wall. We're going to hit a great economic depression just like we hit in 1929. So that is the dangers of progressivism. In a nutshell, being progressive doesn't mean you have to be pro growth of government. It ultimately, if you are truly progressive, you just want to improve the human condition, and you really just have to understand that the human condition does not require government to step in and solve its problems. The free market might have a solution. And great example, Obamacare, it would demonstrate that for you. And also, finally, if you find yourself to be a liberal, just consider, by today's definition, you might be a libertarian. Just something to really look into and explore. And that's it for me. If you like what I said, spot me a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm going to try and get you at least another video by the end of this month. So keep it locked right here. Catch you later.